It's the same hustle, it's the same pain, the same tears on everything. Maybe one day we'll see we're one big family, like it's one kettle. It's the same sunshine, it's the same rain, the same struggle just to maintain. Maybe one day we'll see we're one big family, like it's one kettle.
Greetings and welcome back to Discussions with Indigenous Education, the genocide of the dark-skinned Indian. Today's episode, we're concentrating on stage 4, which is discrimination. And we went over law. We'll be going over political power in a moment. But stuck in between law and political power is custom, right? And so before we go over customs and how that, is connected to the discriminatory tactics used against us, let's read what custom, the definition of custom one more time.
Right, just refresh our memories.
To refresh. We went over a lot of laws.
Okay, so custom is a mode of behavior or procedure which is widely practiced and accepted and typically long established in a particular society, community, etc.
All right. And so now we're talking about discrimination, right? And we talked about how laws were used to discriminate and remove identities and things of that nature. And now we want to talk about customs, right? And, there's so many things to discuss with respects to the customary things, particularly of the Southern, right, the South, and how those tactics were used to discriminate, to enslave, to pacify us. And I really wanted to go back and start from the beginning because there's so many different things that we can think about in today's world that affects us, right? There's things that happened prior to 1619, right? There's things that happened in the 1500s and even things that happened in the late 1400s that really affected the ability for us to, advocate and practice our customs in a normal fashion. And it's this one speech that, is talked about a lot, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, the authenticity of the speech may be somewhat in question, but the matter of the speech and the things that it speaks to definitely had validity, and I think that's why it's really important for us to read this, to know what this is, and then maybe we can discuss it a little bit further.
Okay, well, even before I read the speech, I think we need to explain what was going on. This is on the barrier islands of Georgia and South Carolina, where missions were being established.
With the Wali.
With the yes, the Wali is one of the groups that were in Georgia. They were in South Carolina also. There were several tribes that were all up and down the coast.
Yeah, well, the Wali was the chiefdom, right? With
yes.
75, 150 various tribes all mixed up into this one collective state, as we might call it, just like we call the Powhatan Confederacy. So, yeah, so the Spanish down here, they messing with us, and...
Yeah, now, and again, they're forming their missions. This is a few years after the first colony that was in St. Augustine, and what was happening is that the Spanish were trying to get a stronghold there on the coast. They were in St. Augustine in Florida. They tried to establish and put another fort in South Carolina so that they can control everything in between, and so any boats that are going by, they control everything. Mm-hmm. So this land was very important, and the people there to monopolize them. Mm-hmm. And they're... After a few missions and a few skirmishes that happened with the indigenous people there, there was a big one which they call the Wali Uprising, which happened in 1597. And this is after several missions were being established, and again, after they were trying to get established, the indigenous people were fighting them off. They did not want them there. There were several skirmishes. And then this big uprising in 1597 where 5 friars got killed by the indigenous people. And some of them, they're really trying to make them saints even today.
Yeah, interesting enough, this is after, what was the Powhatan's son name that was enslaved and then brought back to
Oh, Pecanical?
Pecanical, right? This is story. Apologize. This is a story for another day. But the Powhatan had something to do with this whole
It was when
situation.
when they were establishing the colony. You know, when we hear that they were establishing in Florida, we always think Florida as the state that we know Florida today. But back in the 1500s, Florida was from Florida all the way up the East Coast, up to Canada. All of that was considered Florida.
Okay.
So when we read about any skirmishes, and then there was one where they did get, they landed and captured a slave there in Virginia, took him back into Spain, brought him into Mexico, then brought him back into Virginia, which is where he came from. And as soon as he came back, he ran back with his people, and they killed 5 of the missionaries there. And then that's when the missionaries, that was the I forget which ones they were, but they were like, look, we're leaving.
That's the Jesuits, what?
No, it wasn't the Jesuits.
The Jesuits were with the
the
Wale.
Jesuits were the ones that came back. Yeah.
Okay,
you
right.
know.
But we're not talking about
Right.
this particular uprising, right? We're talking about the Wale uprising. They killed 5 friars, and now we have the Spanish going up and down the East Coast.
They're trying to find out who killed these people, and they're really trying to get the people.
All right.
Okay. And so this is where this speech comes in.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, and again, we're referencing customs. So as you read the speech, we want you to pay attention to the custom of the indigenous population and how even back in the 1500s, we were concerned with that issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says, "Now the friar is dead. This would not have happened if he had allowed us to live according to our pre-Christian manner. Let us return to our ancient customs. Let us provide for our defense against the punishment which the governor of Florida will mete out, for he will punish us severely for having killed one friar as if we had killed them all. Consequently, since the punishment for killing one friar must be equally served as for killing all, let us restore our ancient liberty of which these friars deprive us. They take away from us our women, allowing us but one, forbidding us to exchange them for others. They prohibit us from having our dances, banquets, feasts, celebrations, games, and wars, in order that being deprived of these, we might lose our ancient valor and skill, which we have inherited from our ancestors. They persecute our old men, calling them wizards. They are not satisfied with our labor, for they hinder us from performing it on certain days. Even when we are willing to do all they tell us, they remain unsatisfied. All they do is reprimand us, treat us in an injurious manner, oppress us, preach to us, and call us bad Christians. What we have to hope for except to become slaves. If we kill them all now, we will throw off this intolerable yoke without delay. The governor will perceive our valor and will be forced to treat us well in the event that he should get the better of us."
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And it speaks to the discrimination of the custom and the practice that is still being perpetuated today. You know, eventually they place laws into account that, you know, some of them still might exist on the books where we weren't allowed to drum, we weren't allowed to dance, we weren't allowed to, you know, practice ceremony, you know, and even here in Philadelphia in 2024, we have issues when we're are trying to practice ceremony openly, right? And so these discriminatory tactics is easy to see through even again, and this was supposed to happen in the 1500s, right? It's written in the 1700s, I think, right?
Yes, it was written in 1723.
Okay, and so it's a second hand, third hand. It's an account, but it matters because, it still speaks volumes to the idea of what we are dealing with today, right? And interesting enough, before the break, we talked about, I was reading something from the law with respects to who is being able to identify and who not are able to identify. And I think that fits in here. And so I want to just read the whole thing and not just the beginning part for the audience real quick, right? And determining whether a person is considered to be an Indian under laws mentioning not an Indian, the court have heeded the recognition of the tribe or society of Indians and the recognition by the federal government as expressed in the treaty or statute. As a result, descendants of several Indian tribes with whom the United States never signed a treaty and whom are not specifically covered by any statute are not regarded as legal Indians with respects to federal law. Descendants of many such tribes live along the Atlantic seaboard and Gulf Coast region. And you know what? Interesting enough, we're going to throw that map of, who lives in the Gulf Coast region. We'll show you a map of the Indian population in the 1600s. We'll show you a map of the slave population in the 1800s. And we're going to show you a map of the 2020 census now. And you tell me who these people are, right? With that said, I think we can kind of like wrap it up here because political power under, as far as discrimination and with respects to genocide is concerned, is its own monster. And so I think we need a whole show to go over what political power is, how it's used, and all the different tactics and things like that. And so we're going to wrap the show up here, and when we get back, we'll talk about discrimination and political power. How about that?
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we hope this show has been informative. We hope you stay tuned. I'd like to thank our co-host, Renee Sanders, also known as Red Silver Fox. I'm your co-host, Tavis Sanders, also known as Red Tail Hawk. You've been watching Discussions with Indigenous Education, the Genocide of the Dark-Skinned Indian. We hope to see you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, that's it. Good. All right, if you want to take a 5-minute break and then we
It's the same hustle, it's the same thing, the same tears on everything. Maybe one day we'll see we're one big family, like it's one.